Get out of here. Paying the bills doesn't make you family. Those were the exact words my own son, Kevin, shouted at me during the family Christmas gathering, in front of all our relatives. I had just mentioned the $15,000 I had spent on him over the last year, and his wife, Jessica, leaned in and whispered in my ear, "You're just jealous of my mother." I smiled. Then let them pay the $15,000. That night, I shut it all down. By morning, there was police, tears, and total chaos. My name is Helen. I am 67 years old, and that December night I discovered that to my son, I was not his mother, but a walking ATM. 35 years of sacrificing, working as a housekeeper in 5 different houses to support him after his father died. I paid for his college, his fancy wedding. I gave him the money for the down payment on his house. And this is how he repaid me. But let me tell you how it all began. That family gathering was in my own home, the humble little house where I raised Kevin with so much love. I had cooked all afternoon roast turkey, stuffing, Christmas punch. The table was set with my best dishes, the ones I saved for special occasions. I had invited my sisters, my nephews and nieces. I wanted it to be a perfect Christmas. Kevin arrived late, as always, with his wife Jessica. She is a 32-year-old woman who works as a secretary but always dresses as if she were a millionaire. That night, she was wearing a very elegant green dress and jewelry I knew she couldn't afford on her salary. She walked into my house without greeting me, checking her phone as if she owned the place. Kevin served himself a plate without asking how I was, if I needed help with anything. Nothing. He sat down and started eating in silence. I tried to make conversation, asking him about his work, about his plans for New Year's. Short answers, monosyllables, as if talking to me was a bother. It was then that I mentioned I had been working extra hours cleaning houses to save money for their Christmas gifts. I wanted to buy them something special, to show them how much I loved them. Jessica looked up from her phone and gave me a look of contempt I will never forget. "Helen, you're not young anymore. You should be thinking about retiring instead of bothering Kevin with your money problems." Bothering. That word stabbed me like a dagger in the chest. I explained that it wasn't a bother, that he was my son, and I had always worked to support him. Then Kevin spoke, and his words broke my soul into pieces. "Mom, Jessica is right. You're always talking about money, about what you spend on us. You seem obsessed with reminding us how much it costs to keep you around." "Oh, keep me around?" I was the one keeping them. I had spent $15,000 just that year. Payments for his car, credit cards, the mortgage on his house. My sister, Susan, who was sitting next to me, was dumbfounded. My nephews and nieces stopped eating, feeling the tension that filled the air. But the worst was yet to come. Jessica leaned towards me, and with a venomous smile, she whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "You know what I think, Helen? I think you're jealous of my mother, Patricia. She has real money. She can give us things without reminding us every 5 minutes. You only give to manipulate." The silence was sepulchral. My sisters looked at me with pity. My nephews and nieces didn't know where to look. Kevin said nothing. He didn't defend me. He just sat there, letting his wife humiliate me in my own house, in front of my own family. I felt like the world was collapsing on me. 35 years of sacrifices, of washing my hands until they bled from scrubbing other people's floors, of eating beans so he could eat meat, of wearing the same clothes for years to buy him whatever he needed. All of that reduced to manipulation, to emotional blackmail. But it didn't end there. Kevin finally opened his mouth, and what he said was the final blow. "Mom, maybe Jessica is right. Maybe you need to understand that paying the bills doesn't automatically make you family. Family is earned with respect, not with money." "Get out of here," I said then, with a calm that surprised even myself. "Get out of my house right now." Kevin got up from the table with an arrogance I had not taught him. Jessica followed him, but before she left, she turned to me with a smile that chilled me to the bone. "Thanks for clearing things up, Helen. Now we know exactly what place you hold in our lives." The door slammed shut with a bang that echoed through the entire house. My sisters remained silent. My nephews and nieces stared at their plates. Susan was the first to speak. "Helen, you can't let them treat you like this. That boy has forgotten everything you did for him." But I wasn't listening anymore. In my mind, Kevin's words repeated over and over again. Paying the bills doesn't make you family. After everything I had sacrificed, after giving up my own life to build his, I was not family to him. I was just a nuisance, an inconvenience who inconveniently reminded him how much it cost to support him. My sister Susan came over and hugged me. I could feel her indignation, her rage at what she had just witnessed. That boy has no shame, Helen. After everything you did for him, you worked like a slave to give him an education so he could have a better life than ours. The tears started to flow, but they weren't just tears of sadness. It was pure humiliation. They had been able to humiliate me in front of my entire family, to reduce 35 years of sacrifice to mere manipulation. Susan kept talking, but her words reached me like distant echoes. Do you remember when Kevin was little and got pneumonia? You worked 3 jobs to pay for the private hospital, and when he wanted to study engineering, you sold even your wedding earrings to pay for his college. Every word from my sister was like a knife twisting deeper, because she was right. I had sold everything of value I owned to invest in Kevin's future. I had given up on rebuilding my romantic life, because no man wanted to take on a woman whose every priority was her son. I had lived in the same humble little house for 30 years, because every extra penny went to Kevin. That night, after everyone had left, I sat in my empty kitchen and cried like I hadn't cried since my husband died. But amidst the tears, something else was growing inside me. A cold, calculated rage that I had never felt before, because Kevin and Jessica didn't know something very important, something I had kept secret for the last 6 months. Mrs. Grace, one of the employers for whom I worked for 30 years, had passed away in June. In her will, she left me $850,000. $850,000 that no one knew I had. Not Kevin, not Jessica, not even my sisters. Mrs. Grace had no children, and in her final years, I was more than her housekeeper. I was her companion, her confidant, almost a daughter to her. When the lawyer, Samuel, read me the will, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mrs. Grace had left a letter explaining her decision. Helen was the only person who took care of me with genuine love, expecting nothing in return. She deserves to live her final years with dignity and without financial worries. For 6 months, I kept that secret, not knowing what to do with so much money. I thought about telling Kevin, about helping him pay off his house completely, about securing his future, but something always stopped me, an inner voice that told me to wait, to observe, to not be hasty. Now I understand why. The next day, I woke up with a mental clarity I hadn't had in years. I dressed in my best clothes, that gray skirt I saved for special occasions, and left the house. My first stop was the bank where I had the inheritance papers stored. I needed to organize my finances and plan my next moves very carefully. The bank manager, Mr. Gregory, greeted me with a smile. He had handled the entire inheritance transaction and knew my situation perfectly. "Mrs. Helen, how can I help you today?" "I want to cancel all the automatic transfers I have scheduled for my son, Kevin," I said in a firm voice. "All of them. The payment for his house, his car, his credit cards, everything." Mr. Gregory looked surprised. For years he had processed those transfers. He knew I was left with practically no money each month to cover Kevin's expenses. He had seen me come in at the end of every month with crumpled bills, the product of my work as a housekeeper, to make sure my son's payments were covered. "Are you sure, Mrs. Helen? These are significant payments. The mortgage payment, the car loan, 3 different credit cards. We're talking about almost $3,000 a month. Completely sure. And I want the cancellation to be effective immediately." I signed all the necessary papers, Mr. Gregory explained that Kevin would receive notifications from all the banks and companies informing him that the payments had been suspended, that he would have about a week before they started charging him late fees. 1 week. Kevin would have 1 week to realize his personal ATM had stopped working. My next stop was a boutique downtown, an elegant place I had never entered because everything seemed too expensive. But that day was different. I had $850,000 in the bank and 35 years of sacrifices to make up for. The saleswoman, a young, elegant woman, looked me up and down when I walked in. She probably thought I had mistaken the store, that a 67-year-old housekeeper had no business there. "How can I help you?" she asked with a forced smile. "I want a dress," I said. "Something elegant. Black, because I'm going to a funeral." I wasn't lying. I was going to the funeral of submissive Helen, of the Helen who swallowed insults, of the Helen who believed love was demonstrated by letting herself be humiliated. That Helen had died last night in my kitchen. The dress I chose cost more than my monthly salary as a housekeeper. Black, elegant, with a cut that made me look like what I now was, a woman with power. I also bought myself high-heeled shoes, a genuine leather handbag, and pearl earrings. I left that boutique feeling like a completely new person. That afternoon, as I was walking downtown with my purchases, my phone rang. It was Kevin. For the first time in years, he was calling me. "Mom, I need to talk to you. Something weird happened with the banks." His voice sounded worried, confused, almost desperate. I smiled as he continued to speak. "I got like 10 different notifications saying automatic payments were canceled. It must be a system error. You didn't change anything in your account, did you?" "How strange, Kevin," I replied in the sweetest voice I could manage. "And what were those payments for?" "You know, Mom, the usual. The house, the car, the cards. The payments you help us cover." Now he was saying, "help us." It was no longer manipulation, no longer an obsession with money. Now it was help. How quickly words change when you need something. "Kevin, last night you and your wife made it very clear to me that paying the bills doesn't make me family. So I decided to stop paying bills." The silence on the other end of the phone was glorious. I could imagine his face, his panic, his desperation as he processed what he had just heard. "Mom, wait. You can't do that. I have commitments, obligations. If I don't pay the mortgage this month, they're going to charge me interest. The bank could start foreclosure proceedings. And what does that have to do with me, Kevin? You yourself said that paying bills doesn't make me family, so I'm not responsible for the bills of someone who is not my family." "But Mom, I didn't mean..." "You didn't mean what? That I'm an ATM? That I'm obsessed with money? That I manipulate with my payments? Because that's exactly what you said." Kevin's voice began to break. It was the first time in years I had heard him like this, vulnerable, scared, but it was too late for regrets. "Mom, please, we need to talk. Come to the house, we can fix this." "No, Kevin, your house is your problem now. I have my own plans." I hung up the phone and turned it off. For 35 years I had been available 24 hours a day. That, too, was over. That same afternoon, I took a taxi to the most elegant hotel in the city, the Grand Plaza, a place I had only been to once, when I dropped off clean clothes for one of my employers who was staying there. I never imagined that one day I would be the guest. The receptionist looked at me strangely when I asked for the most expensive suite available. An older woman, dressed in simple clothes, asking for luxury accommodation. But when I took out my new credit card, the one the bank had given me after the inheritance, her attitude changed completely. "It will be a pleasure to have you, Mrs. Helen. How many nights will you be staying with us?" "1 week, to start." The suite was larger than my entire house. It had a living room, a bedroom with a huge bed, a bathroom with a jacuzzi, and a spectacular view of the city. I sat on the leather sofa, and for the first time in decades, I allowed myself to breathe without worry. The next day, my phone started ringing nonstop. Kevin, Jessica, unknown numbers. I decided to turn it on just to listen to the voicemails. The first one was from Kevin, and his desperation was evident. "Mom, please answer. Jessica is very worried. She says maybe we were too hard on you. We can talk, find a solution." The second message was from Jessica, and her tone had completely changed. She was no longer the arrogant woman from 2 days ago. "Helen, it's Jessica. I think there was a misunderstanding. Kevin told me about the problems with the banks. We can sit down and talk like family." Like family. Now that they needed money, I was family again. The third message surprised me. It was from Patricia, Jessica's mother, the rich woman I was supposedly jealous of. "Mrs. Helen, this is Patricia. My daughter told me what happened. I would like to speak with you. I think we can find a solution that benefits everyone. Benefits everyone. How interesting. When they humiliated me, no one thought about benefiting me. But the fourth message was the one that amused me the most. It was Kevin again, but this time crying. "Mom, I don't know what to do. Jessica is furious. She says it's my fault. Her mom is pressuring her to leave me if I don't fix this. They're going to take away the house, the car, everything. Please, Mom. I know I don't deserve it, but you're my mother. You can't abandon me like this." Now I was his mother. When everything was falling apart, when he desperately needed help, then he remembered I was his mother. That afternoon, I decided to treat myself to a luxury I had never had before. I went to a spa. I had massages, facials, a manicure, a pedicure. While the specialist worked on me, I reflected on my new reality. For the first time in 35 years, no one depended on me. No one expected me to solve their financial problems. Upon returning to the hotel, I found the concierge waiting for me with an envelope. "Mrs. Helen, a young man came to leave this for you. He said it was very urgent." It was a handwritten letter from Kevin, in the same handwriting I had taught him when he was a child. "Mom, I don't know if you'll read this, but I have to try. I know I was wrong. I know Jessica was wrong. We were stressed, under a lot of pressure, and we took our frustration out on you. There's no excuse for that. But Mom, I'm your son, the same little boy you held when he had nightmares, the same one you cared for when he was sick. You can't erase all that because of one argument. I need you. Mom, I love you." I tore the letter into small pieces and threw it in the trash. It was easy to talk about love when money was needed. Where was that love when they humiliated me in front of the whole family? The next day, I decided to do something Kevin would never expect. I went to visit my former employer, Mrs. Carroll, an elderly woman who had always treated me with respect. She was surprised to see me looking so elegant, so changed. "Helen, how wonderful to see you. You look splendid. How are you?" I told her the whole story. Carol listened attentively, without judging, without taking sides. In the end, she said something that marked me deeply. "Helen, I raised 3 children, and I'm going to tell you something I learned over the years. Sometimes, the greatest demonstration of love for a child is to let them fall. Let them learn what life costs when they don't have mom solving everything for them." She was right. For 35 years, I had been the mattress that cushioned all of Kevin's falls. I had never allowed him to face the consequences of his decisions. He had never learned the real value of money because he always knew Mom would be there to rescue him. That night, in my hotel suite, I made a decision that would change everything forever. I called the lawyer, Samuel, the same one who had handled Mrs. Grace's inheritance. "Samuel, I need to consult you about something. What legal options do I have if someone has publicly defamed me, deliberately caused me emotional distress?" "Are you thinking of suing someone, Mrs. Helen?" "I'm thinking of protecting myself and making sure that the people who have hurt me understand that their actions have consequences." Samuel explained the options. Lawsuit for moral damages, for defamation, for psychological harm, all documented, all legal, all perfectly justified. "Do you have proof of what you're telling me?" I smiled, because what Kevin and Jessica didn't know was that for the past few months, every time they came to my house, I had recorded our conversations. I had all their humiliations, all their contempt, all their poisonous words saved on my phone. "Samuel, I have more proof than you can imagine." Samuel reviewed the recordings I brought to his office. His expression changed completely as he listened to the words of Kevin and Jessica, especially when he got to the part where Jessica whispered about me being jealous of her mother and Kevin declaring that paying bills didn't make me family. "Mrs. Helen, this is more than enough for a lawsuit for moral damages. The humiliations were public, deliberate, and clearly caused emotional harm. Furthermore, we have the aggravating factor that you are a senior citizen, which increases the severity of the case." "Perfect. I want you to prepare everything, but first, I'm going to give them one last chance to apologize publicly." "One last chance?" "Yes. I want to see how far they are willing to go. I want them to retract everything, to apologize to me in front of the same family that witnessed the humiliation. If they don't, we will proceed with the lawsuit." Samuel smiled. He was an older man, experienced in family cases, and he understood my strategy perfectly. I think that's an excellent idea. In the meantime, I'll prepare all the legal documentation. I left the lawyer's office feeling powerful for the first time in decades. I had taken control of my life. I had stopped being a victim to become the protagonist of my own story. That afternoon, I decided to call Kevin. He answered on the first ring, as if he had been desperately waiting for my call. Mom, finally. I was so worried. Where are you? I've been to your house 3 times and you're not there. I'm in a place where I can think clearly, Kevin. Away from the toxic environment where I was humiliated. Mom, about that. Jessica and I have been talking. We think we all got carried away that night. Maybe we could sit down and talk. Sit down and talk? After what you said to me in front of the whole family? After reducing 35 years of sacrifice to mere manipulation? Mom, please, we're going through a very difficult time. The banks have already started calling. If I don't pay this week, they're going to start foreclosure proceedings. Oh, so now you're going through a difficult time. When you humiliated me, I wasn't going through anything difficult, was I? Kevin sighed on the other end of the phone. I could feel his frustration, his growing desperation. What do you want me to do, Mom? What do you need for us to fix this? I want you and Jessica to organize a meeting. With the same family that witnessed my humiliation, I want you to apologize publicly, to acknowledge everything you did wrong, to admit that your words were unfair and cruel. A family meeting to apologize? Exactly. And I want Patricia to be there too. Jessica's rich mother, the one I'm supposedly jealous of. I want to meet her personally. Mom, I don't know if Patricia will want to come. She's very busy. Kevin, either you do as I ask, or you deal with your financial problems on your own. You decided that paying bills doesn't make me family. Perfect. Then I have no family obligation to help you. Okay. I'll organize the meeting. When? Tomorrow night. At my sister Susan's house. Neutral ground. And Kevin, you'd better come with a completely different attitude. I hung up the phone and immediately called Susan to tell her the plan. Sister, could you lend us your house tomorrow for a family meeting? Of course, Helen. But tell me, what do you have planned? Justice, Susan. Simple justice. The next day, I prepared as if it were the most important battle of my life. I wore the elegant black dress I had bought, the high heels, the pearl earrings. I had my makeup and hair done at the hotel's beauty salon. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me. She was elegant, powerful, self-assured. I arrived at Susan's house exactly at the agreed-upon time. My sister greeted me with wide eyes. Helen, you look spectacular. What have you done to yourself? I found myself, sister. After 67 years, I finally found myself. Kevin arrived 15 minutes late, as usual. Jessica was with him, but her attitude was completely different. No arrogance, no superiority. She seemed nervous, almost scared. And behind them came a woman I assumed was Patricia. Patricia was a woman of about 58, well-dressed, but not as much as Jessica had boasted. In fact, her clothes looked expensive but not new, as if they had been bought some time ago. Her jewelry also looked authentic but worn. There was something about her that didn't fit the image of the wealthy woman Jessica had painted. Helen, a pleasure. I'm Patricia, Jessica's mother. I'm very sorry about what happened the other night. Her tone was conciliatory, almost servile. Nothing like the arrogance I expected to find. We sat in Susan's living room. Kevin and Jessica on one sofa, Patricia in a chair, me in the main armchair. My sister remained standing, a silent witness to what was about to happen. Well, you told me you wanted to apologize, I began in a calm voice. I'm listening. Kevin cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. Mom, Jessica and I have reflected a lot on what happened. We realize that our words were very harsh, very unfair. You have been an extraordinary mother. You have sacrificed a lot for me. His words sounded rehearsed, empty. There was no real emotion, only need. Jessica took the floor. Helen, I also want to apologize. I was stressed that night, with a lot of pressure from work, and I said things I shouldn't have. You are an admirable, hard-working woman, and you deserve respect. More hollow words. I could see in their eyes that they just wanted to get this charade over with so they could ask me for money again. "And you, Patricia, do you also apologize?" I asked her directly. Patricia looked at me, surprised, as if she hadn't expected to be included. "Well, I wasn't present that night, but if my comments through Jessica offended you in any way, of course I apologize." "Your comments through Jessica? Do you mean when your daughter told me I was jealous of you because you have real money?" The silence was sepulchral. Patricia became visibly nervous. Jessica looked at her in panic. It was clear that some lies were about to come to light. "Well, that must have been a misunderstanding." I smiled. It was the perfect moment for the first revelation. "How curious, Patricia. Because according to my investigations, you don't have as much money as you claim. In fact, I understand you're quite in debt." Patricia's face turned completely pale. Jessica looked at her in horror, as if she had just discovered that her whole life had been a lie. Kevin understood nothing, but he could feel the tension filling the room. "Investigations?" Patricia stammered. "I don't know what you're talking about." I took out a folder I had brought with me. Samuel had been very efficient in getting information. "Patricia Ramirez, 58 years old. Divorced 3 years ago. Your ex-husband got most of the assets in the divorce because he discovered you had been spending compulsively and hiding debts. You currently owe $200,000 between credit cards, personal loans, and a mortgage that is in default." The silence was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Jessica stared at her mother as if she were seeing her for the first time in her life. "Mom, is that true?" Jessica whispered. Patricia tried to regain her composure, but her voice trembled as she spoke. Those are private matters. You have no right to investigate my personal life. I have every right when you allow your daughter to humiliate me using your supposed wealth as an excuse. When she tells me I'm jealous of your money, when in reality, you don't even have enough to pay your own debts." Kevin finally spoke, his voice confused. "Jessica, I don't understand. You always said your mom was a millionaire, that she had properties, investments." Jessica couldn't even speak. Tears began to roll down her cheeks as the truth crumbled before everyone. I continued reading the report. "What's more, Patricia works as a sales associate at a department store, with a salary that barely covers her apartment rent. The jewelry she wears are imitations bought from second-hand stores. The car she drives is about to be repossessed." "That's enough," Patricia shouted, completely losing her composure. "You have no right to expose my life like this." "I have no right? Just as you had no right to allow your daughter to humiliate me based on lies? Just as you had no right to make me feel inferior for not having your supposed money?" Jessica finally found her voice, but it was barely a broken whisper. "Mom, why did you lie to me? Why did you make me believe we were rich?" Patricia completely broke down. Tears streamed down her face as the truth came pouring out. "Because I wanted you to be proud of me. Because when your dad left me, I was left with nothing. I lost the house, the cars, everything. But I didn't want you to know that your mother was a failure." Patricia's sobs filled the room. Jessica looked at her with a mixture of horror and compassion, while Kevin tried to process all the information. "So when Jessica told me I was jealous of her rich mother," I continued, "she was actually defending a woman who is more in debt than I ever was." "How ironic." Kevin finally reacted, turning to Jessica with fury. "Are you telling me we humiliated my mother based on lies? That your rich family you boasted so much about doesn't exist?" "I didn't know," Jessica cried out. "My mother lied to me my whole life." "But that doesn't justify what you did to me," I interrupted. "Whether you lied about your financial situation or not, the contempt was real, the humiliation was real, the pain you caused me was real." I got up from the armchair and walked over to Kevin. "Do you know what the saddest part of all this is, son? That while you believed you were superior to me, while you treated me like a nuisance, I had $850,000 in the bank. The 3 people in front of me were petrified." Kevin opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Jessica stopped crying from the shock. Patricia slowly raised her head. "What did you say?" Kevin murmured. $850,000. An inheritance I received 6 months ago from Mrs. Grace, for whom I worked for 30 years. Money I planned to use to secure your future, Kevin. Money I was going to invest in a bigger house for the whole family." I took out my bank statement and showed it to him. His eyes widened as he saw the figure. Impossible, Jessica whispered. Very possible. It turns out the housekeeper you both despised is richer than your entire family combined. The woman who was supposedly jealous of Patricia's feigned poverty could actually buy and sell everything you own 10 times over. Kevin stood up abruptly. Mom, why didn't you tell us? Why did you keep it a secret? Because I wanted to see who you really were. When you thought I had nothing to offer, I wanted to see if you would respect me as a person, or only as a source of money. The answer became very clear that Christmas night, I continued. When you thought I was just a poor housekeeper, you treated me like trash. You humiliated me. You despised me. You told me that paying bills didn't make me family. Patricia finally spoke, her voice trembling. Mrs. Helen, if we had known— What? You would have treated me better? You would have feigned respect for my money? That's exactly the problem. Respect shouldn't depend on how much money someone has in the bank. Susan, who had been quiet all this time, finally spoke. Helen is right. I saw how they treated her that night. It was cruel, unfair, and painful to witness. Kevin approached me, tears in his eyes. Mom, I made a terrible mistake. I didn't know, I didn't think, I didn't measure my words. But I'm your son. You have to forgive me. I have to forgive you? Why? Because now you know I have money? Because now you need me more than ever? No, Mom, because I love you. Because you're my mother and I messed up. If you love me, Kevin, why did you treat me like that when you thought I had nothing to give you? Where was that love when you humiliated me in front of the whole family? He couldn't answer because he had no valid answer. The truth was evident. His love was conditional on my financial utility. Jessica also approached, completely shattered. Helen, I know I'm beyond forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable, but please, give me a chance to make it right. How do you plan to make it right, Jessica? By giving me back my dignity? By erasing the public humiliation? By healing the emotional wounds you caused me? She couldn't answer because she knew some things can't be undone. I looked at the three of them, so vulnerable now, so different from that Christmas night when they felt superior to me. Now you are going to experience something I lived for 35 years. Financial uncertainty. You are going to know what it feels like to not have someone to solve your financial problems. You are going to learn the real value of money. What do you mean? Kevin asked, though he already knew the answer. That you are going to face your debts alone. That you are going to learn to live without the ATM you so despised. But, Mom, Kevin stammered, I can't lose the house. Jessica will lose her job if we end up on the street. We have a life built. A life built? With my money? With my sacrifices? That's not your life, Kevin. It's the life I gave you while you despised me for giving it. Jessica threw herself to her knees in front of me, sobbing uncontrollably. Please, Helen, I know I don't deserve it, but I beg you, we can change, we can be different. Give me a chance to show you I can be the daughter-in-law you deserve. You had 32 years to be the daughter-in-law I deserve, Jessica. You chose to be cruel, dismissive, and abusive. Those choices have consequences. Patricia also approached, desperation in her voice. Mrs. Helen, I take full responsibility. It was my fault for filling Jessica's head with lies about my situation. But please, don't punish my daughter for my mistakes. Your daughter is a 32-year-old adult, Patricia. She chose to humiliate me based on false information she never bothered to verify. She chose to treat me like trash because she thought she could get away with it. I headed for the door, but before leaving, I turned to face them one last time. For 6 months, I kept the secret of my inheritance, waiting for the right moment to tell you. I thought I would do it on Christmas. I thought it would be a perfect gift for the whole family. But you showed me who you really were before I had the chance. Kevin stood up abruptly. So this is all revenge. You set us up. A trap? No, Kevin. A trap would have been pretending to be poor to test you. I simply didn't mention my good fortune. You chose to treat me badly without any provocation on my part. But we're family, he shouted in desperation. Family? You yourself said that paying bills doesn't make me family. Let's apply that logic. Humiliating, despising, and mistreating doesn't make you family either. I left Susan's house feeling liberated, but also emotionally exhausted. The taxi was waiting for me outside to take me back to the hotel. During the ride, I reflected on what had just happened. I had exposed all the lies. I had revealed my true situation, but I knew this was just the beginning. When I got to the hotel, I found multiple messages on my phone. Kevin had called 20 times in the last 30 minutes. Jessica had sent desperate text messages. Even Patricia had somehow gotten my number and had left pleading voicemails. I decided to listen to just one of Kevin's messages. "Mom, please don't do this. I know we messed up. I know we were cruel to you. But we're your family. We're all you have in this world. Without us, you'll be alone forever. Is that what you want? To be alone with your money?" His words infuriated me more than all the insults from Christmas night. Now it turned out that I needed them, that without them, I would be alone forever. The same emotional manipulation, but now with added desperation. I immediately called Samuel. "Attorney, proceed with the lawsuit. I want you to file all the documents tonight." "Are you sure, Mrs. Helen? Once we initiate the legal process, there's no going back." "Completely sure. I want you to sue for moral damages, defamation, and psychological harm. I have the recordings. I have witnesses. I have everything you need." "Perfect. I will file the lawsuit tomorrow morning. What amount do you consider appropriate?" $100,000. And I want it to be public. I want the whole city to know what they did to me. The next day, the lawsuit was the talk of the entire neighborhood. The lawyer had contacted a local journalist, and the story of the millionaire housekeeper suing her ungrateful son spread like wildfire. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Unknown numbers, reporters wanting interviews, curious neighbors. But the calls that hurt the most were from Kevin, increasingly desperate, increasingly pleading. I decided to answer one of his calls, the 10th of the day. "Mom, please stop this. The lawsuit was in the newspaper. Everyone is talking about us. Jessica lost her job. They fired her because of the scandal. The neighbors pointed us on the street. And how do you think I felt when you humiliated me in front of the whole family? How do you think I felt when you treated me like trash?" "But Mom, this is too much. It's one thing for you to leave us without money, but to ruin our reputations, our jobs, our lives. It's one thing to make a mistake, Kevin. It's another thing to deliberately humiliate your mother for years and then expect no consequences." It wasn't years. It was one night. One night? Do you really think it all started that Christmas night? How many times did Jessica treat me with contempt? How many times did you make me feel like I was a burden? How many times did you ignore my feelings? Kevin fell silent because he knew I was right. The contempt had been constant, gradual, systematic. Christmas night had just been the last straw. "Mom, okay, I accept that we were cruel. I accept that we hurt you. But what's your plan? To completely destroy us?" "My plan is for you to learn that actions have consequences, that respect is earned, not bought, that treating people badly, especially your mother, is not something you can do without facing the consequences." "And then what? When we've lost everything, when we're on the street, when Jessica and I have divorced because we couldn't handle the pressure, what will you have gained from that?" "I will have gained my dignity back. I will have gained the peace of mind of knowing that I didn't allow myself to be treated like trash anymore." That afternoon, as I drank tea on the terrace of my suite, I reflected on Kevin's words. What was I really going to gain from all this? Would revenge give me back the 35 years of sacrifice? Would it heal the emotional wounds? But then I remembered Jessica's face when she whispered that I was jealous of her mother. I remembered the coldness in Kevin's eyes when he told me that paying bills didn't make me family. I remembered the public humiliation, the cruel laughter, the absolute contempt. No, this wasn't just revenge. This was justice. This was setting boundaries after a lifetime of not setting them. This was teaching them that even a mother's infinite patience has a breaking point. That night, I made a decision that would change the course of this whole story. I was going to do something Kevin would never expect, something that would hit him where it hurt the most, in his public pride. The next day, I woke up with an idea that filled me with an energy I hadn't felt in years. If Kevin wanted to play dirty, if he wanted to manipulate the situation in his favor, I was going to teach him what it really meant to have power. I called Samuel and asked him to organize a press conference. I wanted to tell my story publicly, with all the details, all the proof, all the recordings. If the story was already in the local paper, it was better for people to hear my full version. Mrs. Helen, are you sure you want to expose yourself so publicly? Samuel, for 67 years I have lived in the shadows, working in silence, enduring private humiliations. It's time for the world to know who I really am. The press conference was scheduled for Friday afternoon in the main ballroom of the hotel where I was staying. Samuel contacted several local and some national media outlets. The story had piqued curiosity, a millionaire housekeeper suing her own son for emotional abuse. Meanwhile, Kevin had begun a desperate campaign to clear his name. He had created social media profiles, telling his version of events, presenting me as a vengeful and manipulative mother who was destroying her family over a misunderstanding. His posts said things like, "My mother is punishing us for a normal family argument. She cut off all financial support overnight and is now suing us for $100,000. Is this what a loving mother does?" The comments were divided. Some supported him, saying I was a toxic mother. Others criticized him, especially as rumors began to circulate about the details of what had really happened that Christmas night. But what bothered me most was seeing that Jessica had also started posting on her social media. She had uploaded photos of herself crying, with messages like, "I lost my job over a family misunderstanding. My mother-in-law decided to ruin our lives because we had an argument. Where is the Christian compassion? Christian compassion." After publicly humiliating me, now she was talking about Christian compassion. On Thursday night, the day before my press conference, Kevin did something I never thought he would do. He created a live stream on Facebook to tell the truth about what was happening. I found out because my sister Susan called me, upset. "Helen, Kevin is live streaming. He's saying terrible things about you. He says you went crazy with the money, that you were always manipulative, that you're taking revenge because he got married." I turned on my computer and went to his stream. There were over 500 people watching. Kevin was in his living room, with Jessica by his side crying, playing the role of the perfect victims. "My mother received an inheritance 6 months ago and didn't tell us anything," Kevin was saying. "Then, when we had a small family argument at Christmas, she decided to punish us by cutting off all the financial support she was giving us. Now we've lost the house, Jessica lost her job, and she's suing us for $100,000. The live comments were a mix of support and criticism. Some said, "Your mother supported you for years. You should be grateful." Others commented, "A mother shouldn't abandon her children like that." But what enraged me most was when Kevin started crying on camera. "I just want my mother back. I know we made mistakes, but she was all we had. Now she's living in a luxury hotel while we're left with nothing. Is that fair?" Jessica took the floor, theatrically wiping her tears. Helen was always controlling with money. She always reminded us how much she spent on us. That Christmas night, when we told her that it bothered us, she exploded. She kicked us out of her house, and the next day she canceled all our payments. "Liar," I screamed at the screen. They were completely twisting what had happened. I saw that the comments were starting to change tone. More people were beginning to support them, to see them as victims of a cruel and vengeful mother. Kevin was very smart at manipulating people's emotions. "We just want our family to reconcile," Kevin continued. "We want to sit down and talk, apologize properly, and find a solution. But she refuses to see us. She has blocked us from everywhere." At that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. I created a new Facebook account and joined the live stream. I wrote in the comments, "Hello, Kevin. It's your mother. I see you're telling your version of the story. How about I tell mine?" The stream went crazy. The comments started to explode. "It's her. The mom is here. This is going to get good." Kevin saw my comment and turned completely pale. Jessica looked at him in terror. For a moment, he didn't know what to do. "Mom, is that really you?" he asked with a trembling voice. "Yes, it's me. And I think it's time for all these people to hear what really happened that Christmas night. Mom, please, don't do this. We can talk in private." "In private? Like when you humiliated me in front of the whole family?" "No, Kevin. You decided to make this public. I will respond publicly. The viewership had increased to over 1,500. People were sharing the stream, tagging their friends. It was like a live reality show. Do you want to know what really happened? I wrote in the comments. Do you want to hear the recordings of what they said to me that night? Kevin stood up abruptly from his chair. You can't do that. Those are private conversations. Private? Like this broadcast where you are defaming me in front of thousands of people? Jessica finally spoke, her voice desperate. Helen, please. We've suffered enough. People are judging us. I lost my job. We're about to lose the house. Oh, so now I'm Helen again. No longer the crazy, manipulative woman from 5 minutes ago. The comments were out of control. There were people defending me, people attacking me, people asking me to play the recordings. Kevin, I wrote, do you want to tell all these viewers exactly what you said to me that Christmas night? Do you want to repeat the exact words you used? Mom, we already apologized. No, you didn't apologize. You told me it was a misunderstanding, that you were stressed, that we all got carried away. But you never admitted how cruel you were. At that moment, I decided to do something I knew would be devastating for them. You know what? You're right. It's better if the recordings speak for themselves. And without further ado, I started playing the audio from Christmas night through my computer speakers directly into their live stream. Jessica's voice came through, clear and crisp. You're just jealous of my mother. She has real money. Then Kevin's voice. Paying the bills doesn't automatically make you family. The silence on their stream was absolute. The comments exploded with outrage towards them. The comments on the stream turned into an avalanche of criticism against Kevin and Jessica. What ungrateful children. Poor lady. They deserve everything that's happening to them. Kevin tried to defend the indefensible, but his voice sounded desperate and unconvincing. Those recordings are taken out of context, he stammered. There was an argument. We all said things we regret. I continued playing more parts of the audio. Jessica's contemptuous voice saying I was obsessive about money. The cruel laughter when I mentioned my sacrifices. The exact moment when Kevin told me I sounded like a complaining ATM. Every second of audio was more devastating than the last. The viewership of the stream increased to over 3,000 people. The story was going viral in real time. This is what you call a small family argument, I wrote in the comments. Humiliating a 67-year-old mother in front of her entire family. Jessica tried to take control of the situation. Helen, I understand you're hurt, but this isn't going to repair our relationship. This is just making things worse for everyone. Repair our relationship? What relationship, Jessica? The one where you treat me like trash and I pretend it doesn't hurt? The comments were relentless. That daughter-in-law is a snake. The son is ungrateful. Mrs. Helen, you did the right thing. Kevin finally lost his composure completely. That's enough, Mom. You're destroying our lives. People are attacking us on the streets. Jessica can't even leave the house. And how do you think I felt when you attacked me that night in my own house? When you made me feel like a stranger in my own family? At that moment, I decided to play the most painful part of the recording. The moment when Kevin told me to get out of my own house and Jessica's final words. Thanks for clearing things up, Helen. Now we know exactly what place you hold in our lives. The silence after those words was sepulchral. Even the comments paused for a few seconds, as if everyone was processing the cruelty of what they had just heard. Then, the comments exploded with a fury I had never seen. They are monsters. How can they treat their mother like that? They deserve to lose everything. Mrs. Helen, don't give them a single penny. Kevin stood up abruptly and tried to end the stream, but it was too late. Thousands of people had already recorded clips of the stream and were sharing them on all social media platforms. Before he could end the stream, I wrote one last comment that I knew would be devastating. For everyone watching this, for 35 years, I worked as a housekeeper to give this man the life I never had. I paid for his college, his wedding, his house, his car. I spent my last savings on him. And this is how he repaid me. Now that I have my own money, that I no longer need to be his ATM, he wants to play the victim. The only victim here is me. Kevin abruptly ended the stream, but the damage was already done. In less than an hour, clips of the stream were circulating all over the city. The neighbors who used to greet him now pointed at him with contempt. The store where Jessica had worked issued a statement saying they had fired her for representing values contrary to those of the family-owned company. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, television shows, even producers of entertainment programs wanted to interview me. The story had transcended local boundaries and was becoming a national phenomenon. That night, I decided to cancel the press conference I had planned. It was no longer necessary. The live stream had accomplished more than any formal event could have. The next day, I woke up to a call from Samuel. "Mrs. Helen, did you see the news?" The story was on national programs. They're calling Kevin the most ungrateful son in the country. I turned on the television, and sure enough, my story was on every channel. Morning shows, news programs, entertainment shows. Everyone was talking about the case of the millionaire housekeeper and her ungrateful son. What was most shocking was seeing that they had managed to get interviews with my former employers. Mrs. Carol, for whom I had worked for 15 years, was on television defending me. "Helen is the most hardworking and noble woman I have ever known," Carol said in the interview. "She never missed a day of work. She was always worried about saving money for her son. To see how they treated her is heartbreaking." Another of my former employers had also been interviewed. Helen sacrificed her whole life for that boy. She worked in 3 houses simultaneously to pay for his studies. We saw her come home exhausted, but always with a smile because she knew she was building her son's future. The testimonials continued throughout the morning. My former bosses, neighbors, even the grocer from the corner store where I shopped for years, all telling stories of my sacrifices for Kevin. But what struck me the most was an interview they did with the sister of Mrs. Grace, the woman who had left me the inheritance. "My sister Grace always said that Helen was like a daughter to her," the woman explained. "In the last years of her life, Helen was not only her employee, she was her companion, her confidant, her family. That's why she left her that inheritance. Because she knew that Helen had cared for her with genuine love, not for personal gain." As I was watching the news, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Helen? This is Maria Sanchez from the show Justice for All. We would like to invite you to our program to tell your full story." Over the next few days, the invitations kept pouring in. Radio shows, television programs, even a publishing house that wanted me to write a book about my experience. Meanwhile, Kevin and Jessica's lives were falling apart publicly. Social media had turned them into social pariahs. Jessica couldn't find a job anywhere because her name was associated with the scandal. Kevin had lost several clients at his engineering job because companies didn't want to be associated with someone who had mistreated his elderly mother. The bank finally foreclosed on their house. They were seen leaving with their belongings in boxes, while neighbors recorded them and uploaded the videos to social media. The comments were ruthless. "They deserve it. Divine karma. Now they'll know what it's like not to have mom." A week after the viral stream, I received an unexpected call. It was Patricia, Jessica's mother. "Mrs. Helen, please. My daughter is destroyed. Kevin is depressed. They are living in my 1-bedroom apartment, sleeping on the floor. Don't you think they've suffered enough?" "Enough? After 1 week? I suffered for 35 years. Patricia, they created this situation. They chose to humiliate me publicly. Now they are facing the consequences of their actions. But they're thinking about divorce. Jessica says she can't take the social pressure anymore. Is that what you want? To completely destroy their marriage?" The truth was, I didn't know what I wanted. The revenge had been more satisfying than I expected, but also more devastating. Seeing their public destruction gave me a bittersweet feeling. It was justice, but it was also painful to see the son I had raised with so much love suffer. That night, as I looked at the city from the terrace of my suite, I reflected deeply on everything that had happened. The revenge had been complete, devastating, public. Kevin and Jessica had lost everything: the house, the job, the reputation, the dignity, but something inside me didn't feel completely satisfied. Maybe it was because, despite everything, Kevin was still my son. The same little boy I had held in my arms when he had a fever, the same one I had comforted when he had nightmares, the same one for whom I had sacrificed everything for 35 years. But then I remembered his exact words. Paying the bills doesn't make you family. And the satisfaction filled me again. The next day, Samuel called me with news I didn't expect. Mrs. Helen, Kevin wants to withdraw his defense in the lawsuit. He is willing to accept full responsibility and pay you the $100,000 for moral damages. $100,000? With what money? He's completely broke. He says he'll get a loan, that he'll sell everything he has left, that he'll work day and night until he pays it off. He just wants this to be over. The irony was perfect. The man who had told me I was an ATM was now willing to go into debt up to his neck to pay me. The one who had despised my money was now pleading with his own. But then Samuel told me something that surprised me. He also asked me to give you a personal message. He says he understands if you never forgive him, that he accepts that he destroyed the relationship with the only person who truly loved him. He says he's not asking for forgiveness because he knows he doesn't deserve it. He just wants to pay you what he owes you and disappear from your life forever. Disappear from my life forever. For weeks I had fantasized about those words, but now that I heard them, they hurt more than I expected. That afternoon, I decided to do something no one expected. I took a taxi to Patricia's apartment, where I knew Kevin and Jessica were living. It was an old building in a neighborhood I had known very well in my days as a housekeeper. I knocked on the door of apartment 3B. Patricia opened it, her face a mask of total surprise. "Mrs. Helen, what are you doing here?" "I came to talk to Kevin, for the last time." Kevin appeared behind Patricia. He looked completely different. He had lost weight, had deep dark circles under his eyes. His hair was disheveled. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in 2 weeks. "Mom," he murmured in a broken voice, "I wasn't expecting to see you. We need to talk, alone." We went out to the small balcony of the apartment. The contrast with my luxury suite was brutal. 2 weeks ago, he lived in a 3-bedroom house, and I lived in a humble little cottage. Now the positions had completely reversed. "How are you?" I asked, although the answer was obvious. "Destroyed," he answered without trying to pretend. "Completely destroyed. I lost everything, Mom. The house, the job, the friends, the reputation. Jessica is going to leave me. She says she can't take the social pressure anymore. And all because of one December night when you decided to humiliate your mother. I know, and I accept it. I'm not here to ask for your pity or forgiveness. I know I don't deserve them." I was surprised to hear him so different. There was no trace of the arrogance from before, of the superiority, of the contempt. He was a broken man who finally understood the consequences of his actions. "What do you want then?" "I want you to know that I understood. I understood what you tried to teach me. I understood what it feels like to be alone, without money, without support, without family. I understood what you lived through all these years while I took you for granted." His words sounded genuine, but it was too late for lessons learned. "I also want to ask you something," he continued. "When I pay the $100,000 from the lawsuit, I want us to consider ourselves completely at peace. That you never have to see my face again if you don't want to. That you can live your life in peace, with your money, without the burden of an ungrateful son." The burden of an ungrateful son? Is that what he thought he was to me? "Kevin, you were never a burden. You were my life's project, my reason for being, my greatest pride. That's why it hurts so much that you treated me the way you did." Tears began to roll down his cheeks. "Mom, I ruined everything. I ruined the relationship with the only person who loved me unconditionally. And the worst part is, I can't blame anyone else. I can't say it was Jessica's fault, or stress, or circumstances. It was me. It was me who chose to treat you badly." For the first time in 2 weeks, I felt a hint of compassion for him, but it wasn't enough to erase 35 years of sacrifice reduced to manipulation. "Do you know what's saddest of all, Kevin? That it took you losing everything to realize what you had." "I know, Mom. And that's why I'm not going to ask you to forgive me. I'm just going to ask you to be happy. To use your money to live the life you deserve. To travel. To spoil yourself. To do everything you couldn't do because you were taking care of me." His words moved me more than I expected. It was the first time in his adult life that he thought about my well-being without mixing it with his own needs. "And what are you going to do?" "I'm going to get a job wherever I can, doing whatever I can. I'm going to pay the lawsuit even if it takes me years. And I'm going to learn to live with the consequences of my actions. At that moment, I made a decision that surprised even myself. Kevin, I'm not going to accept the money from the lawsuit. He looked at me, confused. But Mom, I don't need it. I have more money than I can spend in what's left of my life. And I don't want the rest of your existence to be marked by a debt to me. Then what do you want? I want you to learn to be a real man, to build your life with your own hands, without depending on anyone, to value what you have while you have it, and to never, ever treat someone who loves you badly again. Does that mean you forgive me? I looked him straight in the eyes before answering. That means I'm releasing you from the financial debt. The emotional debt is something you will have to live with for the rest of your life. I stood up to leave, but before stepping off the balcony, I turned to him one last time. Kevin, for 35 years I was your mother. From today, you are free to be your own man. Use it wisely. I left the apartment without looking back. In the taxi back to the hotel, I reflected on what I had just done. I hadn't truly forgiven, but I had released. I had cut the chains that tied me to a toxic relationship, but I had also cut the ones that made me his eternal savior. That night, I called Samuel to officially withdraw the lawsuit. The next day, I bought a small but elegant house in a quiet neighborhood, far from all the painful memories. It was time to start the life I had never allowed myself to have. 6 months later, as I drank coffee in the garden of my new house, I reflected on everything that had happened. Kevin had found a job as an engineer in another city. Jessica had left him, just as she had threatened. He was rebuilding his life from scratch, without anyone's help, finally learning the value of independence. I don't regret adopting him when he was a child. I only regret not understanding sooner that kindness should never be practiced at the cost of self-destruction. At 67, I finally learned that self-love is not selfishness, it is survival.